Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about Season 2 of the MCU Multiversal anime known as What If. Now, how this review is going to work, this is not a spoiler review, so I'm just going to sort of very quickly jump on each episode of all 9 episodes and give you a very quick briefing of my thoughts of each one and what I thought of the series as a whole. So let's just go right ahead and jump in. So episode 1 was titled What If Nebula Joined the Nova Corps. Now this was probably my favorite episode of the whole series, or definitely within the top 3. It was really cool seeing this dark noir sort of investigative detective form of story in which is told from the perspective of Nebula. Like I said, it was really cool. I really thought that she did a great job they really did a great job telling that story, and it was great to hear Karen, I believe her name is Karen Gillian, or I believe is her name, come back and reprise her role and voice Nebula. She did a phenomenal job, and it was just so cool to see Nebula a part of the Nova Corp while also being tarnished by her background, because remember, she was still bad, but then she became good to join the Nova Corp, which made her struggle to earn respect from the rest. So I really appreciated that, and I really loved how they told that story. I loved the feel, the tone. It was very much like a Blade Runner meets the Animatrix anime known as The Detective. Very dark, very gritty, but really, really good and really, really well done. In fact, I think out of all the episodes, this was probably the only episode out of them all in which the pacing was perfect from start to end. Everything else felt rushed. Every other episode was not long enough, but I feel like with this one, with Nebula, they really hit the nail on the head. So episode 2 then was titled, What If Peter Quill Attacked Earth's Mightiest Heroes? Now, I thought that this story was pretty fun. It was also really cool to see the introduction of Bill Foster, who's known as Goliath or Giant Man. So it was really cool to see him in this episode. It was also really cool to see Peter Quill, basically come back as this child version of this celestial, and so it was really cool to see what would happen if he did end up going with Ego, and then of course help Ego execute his plan of galactic takeover and whatnot. So I really appreciated that. I love the characters of this one. It was nice to see Peggy, nice to see Howard, nice to see Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, actually be Ant-Man. So I really loved the idea of it, but once again I didn't believe, I thought it was too rushed, too short. This episode could have easily had an extra 10 to 15 minutes just because of how quick Peter Quill ends up turning to the good side, and also how overpowered he was at the very end. I just don't buy that he would have been strong enough to overcome a Celestial who's been alive for perhaps thousands and thousands of years, but it was still really fun to watch overall. I just thought it was a little far-fetched even for this type of world, and I thought they could have executed the ending just a little bit better. I think if it had another 10 to 15 minutes to breathe, it would have been really, really cool. So then we move on to episode 3, which was What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas? Now, this was a very fun episode, but in terms of story or character development, this was definitely probably the weakest of the entire series. I think, however, I had a lot of fun. It was so cool to see Justin Hammer return, along with Darcy. They were my two favorite characters of this episode, Darcy and Justin Hammer, and it was really nice to see the actors actually come back and reprise their roles, so that was really fun. It was also really fun seeing the Avengers dressed up in Christmas attire. Captain America's wearing this funny elf suit, Hawkeye was wearing this this funny, like, ugly Christmas sweater type thing, so it was really fun to see that part of it as well. And then, of course, Happy Hogan in this one ends up becoming the Hulk, which he actually ends up reprising again in future episodes of this season, which makes me really wonder, what they're going to do with the Hulk and the Hulk characters in the future in the MCU. Seems like they're really pushing and reminding us that the Hulk now actually, reminding us that Marvel now owns the rights to the Hulk. So it was a fun episode, but story-wise and character-wise, it was not really that great, but it was a fun episode all the same. Episode 4 then was What If Iron Man Crashed into Grandmaster? Now this, even though you could tell that the budget and the animation was done very well in this episode, it did have that season 1 feeling, because this was supposed to be the origin story of Gamora and why the Watcher chose Gamora in season 1 to join the Multiversal Avengers and whatnot. So one thing I will say is that I really liked seeing the Grandmaster and Iron Man, basically banter back and forth, with both of them being very witty, very sarcastic, but also at times very serious. So it was really cool. It really had this Mad Max meets pod racing meets Star Wars kind of vibe. So that was, it was interesting to see that as well. But once again, I don't know if, I still don't really think that this episode was, the best episode of the series by far, or by no means, but it was still cool to see Gamora's backstory, and but I still think that this should have been in the first season, but it was still fun, still a great little fun episode, but it just, I just felt like it could have been a little bit better, but Tony did have some really cool transformations, with some really cool he built a really cool Iron Man suit, and they did a great job at nodding back to Phase 1 when he was in a cave from the very first Iron Man movie, so I could appreciate that. Episode 5 was entitled, What If Captain Carter Fought the Hydra Stomper? This was when I started to get a little bit worried for Season 2, because this is now the second episode that is once again relying on characters from Season 1. Because remember, the previous episode with Tony Stark meeting Grandmaster was all about Gamora's origin story from the first season. Well, this one was a continuation of Peggy's story from Season 1. It starts literally with the Watcher saying, hey, I've returned all these Avengers to their timelines, and basically this is where the story continued on. And so this showed Captain Carter fighting the Hydra Stomper, which of course has Steve Rogers in there. So basically what they did is they gave Peggy the story of Captain America the Winter Soldier combined with the Black Widow movie. Now, one thing I will say was very strong with this episode was it was really nice to see Peggy Carter and Black Widow basically, in an alliance. It was really cool seeing them playing off each other, and I really, really liked their dynamic, but I was a little bit concerned that they were going back to Peggy. Now, episode 6 was titled, What If Cohorty Reshaped the World? I believe they pronounce it as if it has a D, even though it doesn't really. This is a brand new character. She has no comics, and she's not in any of the MCU already. This was a brand new character that they actually introduced here for What If Season 2, and so I really liked her origins, and I really liked the fact that they really went back to this. She comes from this indigenous, Native American background, so I really liked how they handled that part of it. I thought that was very interesting, but once again, the biggest problem I had with this episode, it was way too short. They could have easily had another 10 to 15 minutes tacked on here just to make it more believable. She did feel a little bit overpowered. Now, I do feel like the episode did a relatively good job of explaining why, because they just kind of said that time works a little bit different in the Sky World, but still, I still thought that she was still a little bit too crazy with her powers. I think that, like I said, if they had attacked on another 10 or 15 minutes to sort of make it, show her maybe training a little bit more even, I think it would have been more believable. Still, I absolutely love the character. I just feel like the episode was very, very rushed. And then, so we come to episode 7, which was What If Hela Found the 10 Rings? Now, this was probably one of my favorite episodes of the whole series. I really loved seeing Hela. I think Hela was a very underutilized character in the MCU. She's a great villain, portrayed by a great actor. Kate Blanchett, she actually returned to reprise her role as Hela here. She voiced Hela. It was really good to hear her and for her to come back. And I really loved the story arc of this one. I don't think that the pacing was too bad with this episode. I think they did a pretty good job with handling the story with the little bit of time that they had. It was really cool to see her interacting with these other characters from a completely different world that we would never actually see unless it was from a What If episode. So it was really nice to see that as well. Her and not Shang-Chi, but the guy that's kind of like the leader of Shang-Chi, or of the 10 Rings. And so it was really cool seeing that, and it was really nice too, actually, at the very ending of it, when they show her and him aligning and sort of creating almost like this cosmic alliance at the very end, where they go and fight Thanos, which is something that I thought was interesting for this one as well, is that Thanos seemed to pop up a lot, and seems like he always loses, so I don't know what that's about. But anyways, Thanos in What If is, whenever he's in an episode, is not good, or at least not good for him. So then episode 8 was What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602? Now, I did like this episode. I thought this one was a lot of fun, especially when we got to see Bucky. Bucky is the sniper. Normally, he would be using a sniper rifle, but of course, in this one, he was only using a crossbow, so I thought that was really funny. It was also really cool seeing the Destroyer come back from the original Thor movie, and plus in this world Thor was actually king. But once again, they relied heavily on Captain Carter. She got sucked into this world to try and save it because there's these weird incursions or something happening, or the universe is dying because of something or someone who's here that's not supposed to be, someone who's outside of time or out of their time place, kind of like the way Loki was in his series. He was time slipping. Well, in this case they're not time slipping, but the universe is unraveling all around them because something is happening that's not supposed to be there. It's like an anomaly. So they bring Captain Carter in. So I really like seeing the 1602 time frame, plus there's a lot of cameos, a lot of great characters, so I did really like that episode. I thought that was really fun, but once again, I still feel like What If was missing out on a lot of opportunities. They're still reusing and rehashing heroes that we've already seen, and also continuing stories. Even the Watcher himself actually says, I'm not one for sequels because of how many untold stories there are, but then he actually goes on and there is sequels, so a little bit hit or miss with that for me. So then you get to episode 9, which was titled What If Strange Supreme Intervened, and this was a really cool episode in terms of cameos. This, of course, is once again relying on Stephen Strange from season 1, who was this Strange Supreme who, as we know, was learning from the Darkhold, having all this just absolute crazy amounts of power coming and going into him, and he becomes very demonic to the point where the power basically corrupts him, and so this this really makes really makes him super overpowered. And basically the idea of this episode is that he's trying to recreate a universe in which Christina can survive and be alive. So I really liked the idea. I really liked even the fighting sequences, but once again, it was one of those episodes that relies on Peggy, and she just becomes super overpowered. She's able to wield the Infinity Stones. Cohorty is able to wield Thor's hammer, not by lifting it but by using her power. And then she's Peggy uses Hela's helmet and all this crazy stuff. And I just thought that it was a fun episode, but I really did not think that it was a great episode. So I think that if I had to put a number on What If Season 2, I would still say that overall it was entertaining, but I just feel like they missed out on a lot of opportunities and the episodes were too short. So I'd probably give What If Season 2 probably like a 70%, because I still thought the episodes were interesting. I still liked the episodes. I just thought that it could have been done a lot better. And I hope that if there's a season 3, which we do know they did confirm, I hope they start bringing in completely different stories, completely different characters, and stop continuing these stories with Peggy and other people, and just go crazy with it. Tell stories that are on the other side of the galaxy. Tell stories that are about characters that are so absurd. Give Howard the Duck, let him do his own thing. Maybe you know what I mean, like maybe even introduce some new characters, but not like Cohorty. Introduce characters that are in the comics, but give them a What If introduction and just go crazy with it. I don't want season 3 to be a continuation again of the same stories, of the same characters, and all of that kind of stuff. But anyways, folks, that's my review of What If. So let me know in the comment section below if you've seen it, and if you liked it, tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click that subscribe button, and until the next one, take care.